The cargo hauler came down hard on the landing pad. Its engines screamed and shook before dying with a painful sound. Smoke rose from the left thruster. The ship was old, beaten, and tired. Just like its pilot, Virith waited for the ramp to lower. Her claws clicked against the metal floor as she walked. Every step hurt. 3 weeks in space. 3 weeks of broken sleep, cold food, and fear. But she had done it. 50 tons of rare minerals sat in her cargo hold. Delivered on time. Despite everything, Nexus Station Kethray spread out before her like a metal jungle. Ships of all sizes filled the docking bays. Beings of 100 different species walked, crawled, and floated through the corridors. Trade was the blood of this station. Credits were its heartbeat. The Mercantile Consortium controlled everything here. They made the rules. They took their share. Everyone else survived on what was left. Virith was a Draconai. Her people had once been great. Thousands of years ago, they had ruled their world as kings. Their scales were like armor. Their fire could melt stone. Other species had looked upon them with fear and respect. But that was long ago. Now the Draconai were scattered across the galaxy. Their homeworld was a memory. Their pride was a wound that never healed. She walked through the crowds. Other beings moved away from her. A Draconai was still frightening to look at. She stood 3 meters tall. Her scales were deep blue, though they had lost their shine. Her wings were folded tight against her back. Her eyes were gold, ancient, and very tired. The payment office was on level 7. Virith took the lift up. Her heart beat faster as the numbers climbed. This payment would save her family. 30,000 credits. Enough for food, for rent, for medicine. Enough to keep her children alive for another month. Her children. 3 hatchlings waiting in a tiny chamber on the lowest level of the station. The youngest was barely a year old. The oldest was 7. They had not eaten real food in 6 days. Virith had given them everything she had before she left. Nutrient paste. Cheap and tasteless. Barely enough to survive on. She had eaten nothing herself for the last week of her journey. A mother does what a mother must. The payment office was crowded. Virith took her place in line. The beings ahead of her were processed quickly. Credits transferred. Contracts closed. Simple. When her turn came, she stepped up to the counter. The clerk was a Velkari, a thin creature with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were small and cold. He looked at her with the expression of someone looking at garbage. "Name and contract number," he said. His voice was flat. Virith of Clan Ashburn. Contract 7-7-4-2-9. The clerk checked his screen. His fingers moved quickly. Then he stopped. He looked at the screen again. A small smile appeared on his face. It was not a kind smile. "I see there is a problem," he said. Virith felt cold. "What problem?" "I delivered the cargo. On time, in full. I have the confirmation codes. The cargo is not the issue." The clerk turned his screen toward her. New regulation. Effective this cycle. All independent haulers must post a bond equal to 40% of contract value before payment can be released. Virith stared at the screen. The words did not make sense. 40%? That is 12,000 credits. I do not have 12,000 credits. Everything I have is in that cargo hold. That is not my concern. The clerk was already looking past her. Next. Wait. Virith's voice cracked. She hated that sound. She hated showing weakness. But her children's faces were in her mind. Hungry. Waiting. Trusting that their mother would return with food. "Please. I completed the contract. The minerals are worth 10 times what you are paying me. This bond did not exist when I signed the agreement. Regulations change. The clerk shrugged with all four shoulders. You should have checked before you docked. I was in deep space for 3 weeks. My communications array broke in the second week. How could I have known? Again, not my concern. Virith leaned forward. Her claws scraped the metal counter. The sound was loud in the quiet office. Other beings stepped back. Fear flickered in the clerk's eyes, but he pressed something under his desk. A security alert. I only need my earnings, Virith said. Her voice was soft now, broken. The voice of a mother with nothing left to lose. My children have not eaten. Please, I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for what I earned, what I bled for, what I spent 3 weeks in the cold dark for. The clerk's face did not change. Security is on their way. I suggest you leave before they arrive. Drake and I are not popular with station security. Something about unpaid fines. Damaged property. I would hate for your children to lose their mother as well as their dinner. It was a threat. Virith knew it was a threat. Her fire rose in her chest. She could burn this office to ash. She could tear this small gray creature apart with her claws. She was a dragon. Her ancestors had burned cities, but then what? Station security would kill her. Or worse, they would capture her. Her children would be alone. 3 hatchlings in the worst part of the station. No mother. No food. No protection. They would be dead in a week. Or sold. There were markets for young Draconai. Dark markets. The thought made her want to vomit. She stepped back from the counter. Her claws shook. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. A Draconai did not cry. A Draconai endured. A Draconai survived. But surviving was getting harder every day. Behind her, the line had grown longer. Beings of all species waited with their own problems, their own hungers, their own desperate hopes. No one met her eyes. No one spoke. In this place, everyone fought alone. Trust was a luxury. Kindness was a weakness. The consortium had built it that way. Keep them separate. Keep them afraid. Keep them fighting each other instead of looking up. Virith turned to leave. She had no plan. No idea what to do next. Her ship was broken. Her payment was frozen. Her children were starving. The universe was vast and cold and did not care about one tired dragon trying to keep her family alive. She did not notice the human standing in line behind her. She did not see him watching her with old, tired eyes. She did not know that everything was about to change, but it was, because humans were strange creatures. They came from a small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. They were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not the smartest or the oldest. By all logic, they should have stayed on their little planet and never bothered anyone. Instead, they had spread across the stars. And wherever they went, they brought something with them. Something other species did not understand. They brought trouble. Marcus Cole had been watching since the dragon walked in. He was good at watching. 53 years of life had taught him to read a room, to notice the small things, the way beings held themselves, the fear in their eyes, the hunger, the desperation. He had seen it all before. He had felt it all before Dot the dragon was proud. That was clear from how she walked. Head high, shoulders back. Even with dull scales and tired eyes, she carried herself like a queen. But pride did not fill an empty stomach. Marcus knew that better than most. He stood in line behind her. His own business at the payment office was small. A contract dispute. Nothing urgent. He could wait. So he watched Dot. The conversation at the counter was quiet, but Marcus heard enough. New regulation. Bond payment. 12,000 credits. He watched the dragon's shoulders fall. He watched her claws scrape the counter. He watched the clerk smile that cold little smile the bureaucrats everywhere seemed to learn. Then he heard her voice break. That single moment of weakness that she tried so hard to hide. "My children have not eaten." Something moved in Marcus's chest. Something old. Something he thought he had buried long ago. He remembered another voice saying those words. Different language. Different planet. Same desperation. His mother's voice, 30 years ago, before the war took everything. The clerk was calling security. The dragon was stepping back. Her whole body was shaking with rage and grief and helplessness. She was going to leave. She was going to walk out of here with nothing. And somewhere on this station, 3 young dragons were going to go hungry again. Marcus stepped forward. "How much is the bond?" The clerk looked up. His small eyes narrowed. "This does not concern you, human." I asked how much. 12,000 credits. And as I said, this is not your business. Marcus pulled out his credit chip. It was old and scratched. He had carried it through 3 wars, 2 bankruptcies, and 1 very bad marriage. It held everything he had saved over 20 years of hauling cargo across the galaxy. He pressed it to the payment terminal. Transfer 12,000 to the bond. Release her payment. The clerk stared at him. The dragon turned around. Her golden eyes were wide with shock. "You cannot be serious," the clerk said. "I look serious to you? You are paying the bond for a draconi you do not know? With your own credits?" "That is what I said. Process it." For a long moment, no one moved. The clerk looked at his screen, then at Marcus, then at the dragon, then back at his screen. His 4 hands moved reluctantly over the controls. "Bond paid," he said finally. His voice was bitter. "Payment of 30,000 credits released to the contract holder. Are you satisfied, human?" "Getting there." Marcus turned to the dragon. She was staring at him like he had grown a second head. Her claws opened and closed. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. In her culture, Marcus guessed, this kind of thing did not happen. Dragons were proud creatures. They did not accept help from strangers. They did not show weakness. They did not owe debts. "I cannot accept this," she said finally. Her voice was rough. "I do not know you. I cannot repay you. I have nothing." "You have a ship," Marcus said. "A broken one, but still a ship. You have skills. You completed a 3-week haul through the outer reaches. That is not easy. Half my pilots could not do it." "What are you saying?" "I am saying it is not charity. It is an investment." He held out his hand. It was a human gesture. He did not know if dragons understood it. "My name is Marcus Cole. I run coal freight services. Small company. 12 ships. Always need good pilots." The dragon looked at his hand. She did not take it. "You want to hire me? I want to offer you a choice. You can pay me back when you have the credits. Or you can fly from my company until we are even. Either way, your children eat tonight. That is what matters right now." Her eyes changed. The shock was still there, but something else was growing. Something like hope. Something like anger. Not at him. At herself. At the universe. At all the forces that had pushed her to this moment. "Why?" she asked. "Humans do not help Drake and I. We have nothing to offer you. We are broken, scattered, weak. Why would you do this?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. He thought about how to answer. He could tell her about his mother, about the neighbor who had given them food when they had nothing, about the soldiers who had died so he could escape the burning city, about all the times someone had helped him when he did not deserve it and could not pay it back, but those were human stories. She would not understand them. "Not yet, because someone helped me once," he said simply. "Long time ago. I was broke. I was hungry. I had nothing left. And someone stepped in. Did not ask for anything in return. Just did it. He shrugged. Been trying to pay that back ever since. Never quite managed it. But I keep trying. The dragon's golden eyes studied him. Dragons could see things other species could not. Heat patterns, emotional states, lies. Whatever she saw in him seemed to satisfy her. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and took his hand. Her claws wrapped around his fingers. Her grip was gentle despite its strength. I am Virith, she said, of Clan Ashburn, and I will repay this debt. I swear it on my fire. Fair enough. Marcus smiled. It was a tired smile, but real. Now let us go feed your kids. They walked out of the payment office together. The clerk watched them go with hatred in his eyes. He was already writing a report, already flagging the human's name in the consortium database. Troublemaker? Threat to order. Worth watching, but Marcus did not care about clerks or databases or threats. He cared about the dragon walking beside him, the pride returning to her step, the fire coming back to her eyes. He had seen what the universe did to the desperate and the alone. He had seen species crushed under the weight of systems designed to break them. He had watched good beings give up, watched them stop fighting, watched the light go out in their eyes, but not this one. This one still had fight in her. He could see it. All she needed was a chance thought, and if there was one thing humans were good at, it was giving chances to those who had none. It was a strange gift. Other species did not understand it. The galaxy ran on profit and power. Kindness was inefficient. Generosity was foolish. Humans did it anyway. That was what made them dangerous. They reached a lift. Virith pressed a button for the lowest level. Her children were waiting. They had been waiting for 3 weeks, hungry, frightened, alone, but not anymore. Thank you, she said quietly. The words seemed to cost her something. Marcus shook his head. Do not thank me yet. We have work to do. But first, let us get some real food into those hatchlings of yours. Then we can talk about the future. The lift doors opened. They stepped inside. And for the first time in a very long time, Virith allowed herself to hope. The lowest levels of Nexus Station were a different world. Up above, everything was clean and bright. Polished floors, working lights, security patrols. The beings who lived there paid their fees and followed the rules and pretended that nothing was wrong. They did not look down. They did not ask questions. They were comfortable. Down here, comfort was a memory. Marcus followed Virith through narrow corridors. The lights flickered. Some did not work at all. Water dripped from broken pipes. The air smelled of rust and rot and fear. This was where the station put the beings it did not want to see. The poor, the desperate, the species that had fallen from gray-dot eyes watched them from the shadows. Marcus felt them like insects on his skin. He had been in places like this before. On a dozen worlds. In 100 stations. The galaxy was full of dark corners where hope went to die. The consortium built them on purpose. Keep the desperate down here. Keep them fighting for scraps. Keep them too tired and hungry to look up and see who was really stealing from them. Virith moved fast. Her claws clicked on the metal floor. Her wings were tight against her back. Her eyes scanned every shadow. Stay close, she said quietly. These levels are dangerous. Especially for Draconai. Why especially? She did not answer for a moment. Then, our scales. They are valuable. There are markets. Black markets. For parts. Marcus felt sick. He had heard stories. He had not wanted to believe them. But down here, in the dark, he could believe anything. They turned a corner. Then another. The corridors grew narrower. The ceilings grew lower. Marcus was not a tall man, but he had to duck. He could not imagine how Virith managed it. She was 3 meters tall. She had to fold herself nearly in half to move forward. "Here," she said finally. The door was small, scratched, dented. It had been patched many times with different metals. The lock was broken. Anyone could walk in. Virith opened the door. Inside was a chamber barely large enough for a human bed. But it was not a human living here. 3 young dragons were curled together in the corner. Their scales were dull. Their eyes were too big for their thin faces. They looked up when the door opened. Fear first. Then recognition. "Mother!" They rushed forward. All 3 of them. Wings flapping. Claws scrambling. Small voices crying out in a language Marcus did not understand. Virith dropped to her knees and gathered them in her arms. She wrapped her wings around them. She held them so tight it looked almost painful. Marcus stood in the doorway. He felt like an intruder. This was not his moment. This was not his family. But he could not look away. There was something beautiful in it. Something pure. A mother and her children. The oldest truth in any universe. Virith was crying. She tried to hide it, but Marcus saw the tears running down her scales. The hatchlings were crying too. They were asking questions. Where did she go? Why was she gone so long? Did she bring food? Are we safe now? Will the bad beings come back? It was the last question that caught Marcus's attention. What bad beings? He asked. Virith looked up. Her golden eyes were wet but fierce. Collectors. They came twice while I was gone, looking for payment. We owe rent. 3 months behind. I told them I would pay when I returned. They said they would take something else if I did not. She looked at her children. The meaning was clear. Marcus felt that old anger rising in his chest. The same anger he had felt in the payment office. The same anger he had felt 100 times before. There was always someone trying to crush the weak. Always someone making profit from pain. It was the oldest story in any galaxy. And he was very, very tired of it. That will not happen, he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Pay your rent. Pay your debts. Get your children somewhere safe. We can talk about the rest tomorrow. He reached into his jacket and pulled out more credits. Enough to cover 3 months of rent. Enough for food. Enough for medicine. Virith stared at the credits like they were some kind of miracle. This is too much, she said. I already owe you more than I can repay. Add it to the list. Marcus shrugged. I am keeping track. The oldest hatchling approached him. She was small. Maybe 7 years old in human terms. Her scales were pale blue like her mother's, but there were gold spots around her eyes. She looked at Marcus with curiosity and fear and something else. Something that looked almost like challenge. You are a human, she said. It was not a question. I am. Humans do not help dragons. Everyone says so. They say humans only help themselves. They say humans are selfish and violent and cannot be trusted. Marcus knelt down to her level. It put him face to face with a small dragon. Her teeth were very sharp. Her claws were very new. But her eyes were very old. Children in places like this grew up fast. They had to. Some humans are all those things, he said honestly. Selfish, violent, untrustworthy. We are not perfect. We have done terrible things. To ourselves. To others. Our history is full of blood and fire. Then why did you help us? Marcus thought about the question. He thought about all the answers he could give. The simple ones. The complicated ones. The true ones. Because someone helped me once, he said finally. When I was small like you. When I was hungry like you. When I was afraid like you. A stranger helped me. Did not ask for anything. Just helped. And I promised myself that one day I would do the same. That I would find someone who needed help, and I would give it. No matter who they were. No matter what they looked like. No matter what anyone said about them. The hatchling studied him. Dragons could see truth. Their eyes could read heat and emotion and lies. Whatever she saw in him, it seemed to satisfy her. "My name is Kira," she said. "These are my brothers, Thane and Rook. We will remember you, Marcus Cole. Dragons always remember those who helped them. It is our way, and it is human way to help those who need it," Marcus said. "Even when it is stupid. Even when it costs us. Even when everyone says we should not. We do it anyway." Kira tilted her head. "Why?" Marcus smiled. It was a sad smile. A tired smile. The smile of someone who had asked himself that question many times and never found a good answer. "Because if we do not," he said, "then what is the point of being human at all?" He stood up. Virith was watching him with an expression he could not read. The hatchlings were already eating the food she had bought. Real food. Fresh food. Their small faces were messy and happy. "I should go," Marcus said. "You need time with your family. Come find me tomorrow at Docking Bay 12. We will figure out the rest." He turned to leave. But Virith's voice stopped him. "Marcus Cole." He looked back. "In my culture, we do not have a word for what you have done. We have words for duty, for honor, for debt. But this thing you have done, helping a stranger for no reason, this is not something Draking I understand." She stood tall. Her scales seemed brighter somehow. Her eyes were burning with something that looked almost like fire. "But I am learning," she said. "I am learning that there are things in this universe worth more than pride. And I am learning that humans are stranger and more wonderful than anyone told me." She bowed her head. A dragon's bow, deep and meaningful. "Thank you." "For everything." Marcus nodded once. Then he walked out into the dark corridor. Behind him, a family was eating together for the first time in weeks. Behind him, 3 young dragons were laughing at small things. Simple things. But they were the things that mattered. And somewhere in his tired old heart, Marcus Cole felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Word spread fast in the lower levels. A human paid a dragon's bond. A human walked into the darkness and came out again. A human helped a stranger for no reason. The story moved through the corridors like water. It dripped from mouth to mouth. It grew with each telling. By the next morning, half the station had heard some version of it. Marcus did not know any of this when he woke up on his ship. He drank his coffee. He checked his messages. He prepared for another day of fighting the consortium's paperwork. Normal things. Boring things. The things that kept a small freight company alive in a galaxy that wanted to crush it. Then he opened his cargo bay door and found them waiting. There were maybe 20 of them. Different species. Different sizes. Different stories. But they all had the same look in their eyes. The look of beings who had been pushed to the edge. Who had nowhere else to go. Who had heard a story about a human who helped and had come to see if it was true. A Kethri stepped forward. He was short and covered in brown fur. His species were known for their mechanical skills. They could fix anything. But his clothes were torn. His hands were shaking. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. "You are Marcus Cole," he said. It was not a question. "I am." The human who paid the dragon's bond. News travels fast. The Kethri looked at the others behind him. Then back at Marcus. "I have not been paid in 3 months. The consortium says there is a problem with my contract. They say I must wait. Every week I wait. Every week my family goes hungry. I have done everything right. I have followed every rule. And still they crush me. A Sorali female stepped forward. Her people were tall and elegant, with skin like polished stone. She had been beautiful once. Now her eyes were hollow. They renegotiated my contract at gunpoint. They said I had violated a clause I never heard of. Now I fly for half pay. If I complain, they take my ship. If I try to leave, they arrest me for breaking contract. I am a slave in everything but name. More voices joined in. More stories. A young human woman whose family freighter had been seized over false violations. A Velthrani trader whose goods had been confiscated without explanation. A pair of Renix brothers who had been beaten by station security for asking questions about their missing payment. Story after story. Pain after pain. The consortium had been doing this for years. For decades. They had built a machine for grinding people down. And everyone here had gone through that machine. Marcus listened to all of it. He did not interrupt. He did not promise anything. He just listened. And when they were done, he asked one question. What do you want from me? The Kethri spoke again. We are not asking for charity. We know you cannot pay everyone's debt. That is not why we came. Then why did you come? We came to ask if you meant it. When you helped the dragon, was it just one man feeling generous? Or was it something more? Is there something in humans that stands against this? Is there something we can use? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the faces before him. Tired faces. Hungry faces. Angry faces. These were not broken beings. They were beings who had been told they were broken. Who had been pushed down so long they had forgotten how to stand up. He thought about his own history. Human history. The wars. The revolutions. The countless times his species had looked at an unfair system and decided to tear it down. Not because they were strong. Not because they were smart. But because something in them refused to accept cruelty. Something in them burned at the sight of injustice. Get me a list, he said finally. Everyone on this station who has been cheated. Every held payment. Every seized ship. Every broken contract. Every missing credit. I want names. I want numbers. I want proof. The Kethri blinked. What will you do with it? I do not know yet. Marcus smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a human who had decided to make trouble. But the consortium thinks they own this station. They think they own us. They think we will keep fighting each other while they steal everything we earn. He shook his head. They are wrong. They are so very wrong. How? They have security. They have weapons. They have the law on their side. They have the rules on their side, Marcus corrected. Rules they wrote to protect themselves. But here is the thing about rules. Every rule has a loophole. Every system has a weakness. Every machine can be broken if you know where to hit it. He looked at them. All of them. And humans? We are very good at finding loopholes. When we cannot find them, we make them. When we cannot make them, we break the whole thing down and start over. There was a long silence. The beings looked at each other. They looked at Marcus. They did not know what to think. This was not how the galaxy worked. This was not how anything worked. You did not fight the consortium. You survived them. That was all anyone could do. The Marcus was not speaking like someone who wanted to survive. He was speaking like someone who wanted to win. Virith appeared at the edge of the crowd. Her children were with her. They looked better already. Fed. Clean. Hopeful. She pushed through to stand beside Marcus. I will help, she said. I know the lower levels. I know who has been hurt. I know where the bodies are buried. Her eyes burned. The consortium took everything from my people. They scattered us across the stars and called it freedom. They ground us down and called it opportunity. I am tired of being grateful for scraps. I am ready to fight. The Kethri nodded slowly. I can organize the mechanics. Every ship on this station runs because of us. If we stop working, everything stops. The Sorali woman raised her chin. The pilots. We know every shipping lane, every schedule, every weakness in the consortium supply chain. More voices joined, more ideas, more anger. The fire was spreading. Marcus held up his hand. Before we go further, you need to understand something. This will not be easy. This will not be safe. The consortium will fight back. They will try to break us. They will try to divide us. They will try to make us afraid. He looked at each of them in turn. But here is what I know about humans. About all of us. Every species in this room has been told they are small, that they do not matter, that they should be grateful for whatever the powerful give them. And every species in this room has survived. You are still here. You are still fighting. That means something. Virith stepped closer to him. Her scales caught the light. Her voice was strong. My mother used to tell me stories about the old days, when dragons ruled, when we feared nothing. I thought those days were gone forever. I thought we would never be strong again. She looked at Marcus. But you showed me something. Strength is not just about fire and claws. Strength is about standing up when everyone tells you to stay down. Strength is about helping others when you have nothing left yourself. She turned to the crowd. That is what humans do. That is what they brought to the galaxy. Not weapons. Not technology. Something else. Something dangerous. They brought hope. They brought the crazy idea that things can be better. That systems can be changed. That the weak can become strong. Her voice rose. I say we learn from them. I say we fight back. I say we make the consortium remember why they should have been afraid of us. A roar went up from the crowd. Not a human cheer. Not a dragon's fire. Something new. Something born from a dozen different species who had finally found something to believe in. Marcus watched it happen. He had seen this before. On Earth, on colony worlds. Wherever humans went, this happened. The fire spread. The impossible became possible. The small became mighty. It was not a human gift alone. It was a gift that humans gave to others. The gift of stubborn, stupid, beautiful hope. And once that fire was lit, nothing in the galaxy could put it out. 3 months changed everything. The Independent Haulers Coalition started in a cargo bay. 20 beings with nothing but anger and hope. Within a week, they had 200. Within a month, they had 2,000. Within 3 months, they were the largest labor organization in the sector. Humans provided the framework. They had done this before. 100 times. 1,000 times. On their own world and on others. They knew how to organize, how to communicate, how to turn individual pain into collective power. They had learned these lessons in blood and fire across centuries of their own history. Other species provided everything else: numbers, skills, knowledge, fury. The Kethri mechanics formed the backbone. When they refused to work, ships stopped flying. The consortium learned very quickly that their precious trade routes meant nothing without someone to maintain the engines. The Sorali pilots created networks across a dozen systems. Information flowed faster than the consortium could control it. The Drakenei, once scattered and broken, found each other again. They remembered what it meant to stand together, and Virith stood at the center of it all. She had changed in 3 months. Her scales gleamed with health. Her eyes burned with purpose. The desperate mother who had begged for her wages was gone. In her place stood something new. A leader, a symbol, a dragon who had remembered her fire. The consortium did not take any of this quietly. They sent enforcers first. Security teams in heavy armor with weapons designed to intimidate. They arrived at the coalition meeting hall with orders to arrest the leaders and scatter the rest. It should have been simple. They had done it 100 times before. They were met by Draconi, who remembered they were once warriors. By Kethri engineers, who had quietly disabled every weapon in the enforcers' possession. By humans who smiled at the sight of guns and asked politely if the enforcers wanted to talk about their working conditions. 2.5, the enforcers switched sides before the day was over. They were workers too, it turned out. Poorly paid. Badly treated. Just following orders because they had no other choice. The coalition gave them another choice. The consortium sent lawyers next. Mountains of legal documents. Cease and desist orders. Contract violations. Criminal charges. They had built the system. They owned the courts. They knew every rule because they had written them all. Marcus smiled when he saw the paperwork. He had been waiting for this. You know what humans call this? He asked Virith as they reviewed the documents. Bureaucratic warfare. They want to drown us in rules. They think we will give up because we cannot afford lawyers. They think we will break because we do not understand their system. And will we? No. Marcus pulled out a stack of papers of his own. 3 months of research. Every loophole. Every contradiction. Every case of the consortium breaking their own rules. Because we read their rules too. And it turns out they have been violating them for years. Unpaid bonds from workers they claimed did not have proper documentation. Seized ships they never had the legal right to take. Contracts they changed without proper notice. Virith's eyes widened. They broke their own laws? Constantly. Because no one ever had the resources to fight back. No one ever gathered the evidence. No one ever stood together. He set the papers down. Until now. The court battle lasted 6 weeks. The consortium brought their best lawyers. The coalition brought something better. They brought witnesses. Thousands of them. Thousands of them. Every being who had ever been cheated. Every family who had ever been stolen from. Every species who had ever been told they were too small to matter. The judges were consortium appointees. Everyone expected them to rule for their masters. But judges had families too. They had children. They had consciences that had been sleeping for too long. When the evidence piled up, when the stories kept coming, when the whole galaxy watched through news feeds that the coalition had made sure were recording, even bought judges found it hard to rule against the truth. The coalition won its first case, then its second, then its 10th. Each victory brought more members. Each victory proved that the system could be beaten. Each victory lit the fire a little brighter. The final hearing was held in the main hall of Nexus Station. The same hall where the consortium had held its trade meetings for decades. The same hall where the powerful had always gathered to divide the spoils. Now, it was full of workers, pilots, mechanics, haulers, traders, species, from across the sector who had come to see justice done. In the front row sat Virith and her children. Kira, Thane, and Rook. They were healthy now, strong, growing. Marcus stood before the consortium representative. The same species as the clerk who had denied Virith's payment all those months ago. Perhaps even the same individual. It was hard to tell. The coalition demands recognition, Marcus said. His voice was calm. We demand the right to collective bargaining. We demand back payment for all workers who were cheated under the old system. We demand an end to bond requirements that were never legal in the first place. The representative's mandibles clicked with frustration. This is extortion. No. Marcus shook his head. Extortion is what you have been doing for decades. Taking from those who could not fight back. Building wealth on the suffering of others. Calling it business when it was theft. He leaned forward. This is something different. This is collective bargaining. Humans invented it. Took us a while to get it right. A lot of blood was spilled along the way. But we learned. And now we are teaching others. You cannot do this. We built this station. We control the trade routes. Without us, everything falls apart. Without your workers, everything falls apart, Virith said, rising to her feet. You build nothing. You create nothing. You only take. The engineers build your ships. The pilots fly them. The haulers carry your cargo. You sit in your offices and collect the profit from other people's labor. That is not building. That is parasitism. The representative looked around the room. Every face was against him. Every species. Every worker. The power that the consortium had held for so long was slipping away. You will regret this, he said finally. All of you will regret this. Marcus smiled. Maybe. Humans have a long history of regretting things. We regret our wars. We regret our cruelty. We regret all the times we stood by and let the powerful crush the weak. His smile faded. But you know what we regret most? Not fighting sooner. Not standing up when we should have. Not helping when we could have. He looked at Virith. At her children. At the thousands of beings who had found their courage. I do not regret any of this. I never will. The Coalition Charter was signed that day. It was recognized across 3 systems within a month. The consortium still existed, but they were weaker now. They had to negotiate. They had to treat workers fairly. They had to remember that power came from the many, not the few. After the signing, a journalist approached Virith. The story had spread far and wide. Everyone wanted to know how a scattered, broken species had risen to lead a revolution. Why did the movement succeed? The journalist asked. Where others failed? Virith considered the question. She looked at Marcus, who was talking with a group of young pilots. He looked tired. He always looked tired. But he was smiling. Because a human stepped in, she said finally. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they looked at a broken mother and saw themselves. They remembered their own pain, their own hunger, their own desperation, and then they got angry about it. She paused. Her golden eyes were bright with fire. Humans are strange creatures. They carry their history like wounds and weapons both. They remember every time they were crushed. They remember every time they rose up. And they will not allow others to suffer what they suffered. This, I think, is what makes them dangerous. The journalist looked confused. Dangerous? But they helped you. Virith bared her teeth. She had learned that this was a human expression. A smile. It had taken her a while to understand it. Now she wore it often. Dangerous in all the right ways, she said. Dangerous to those who profit from pain. Dangerous to those who build their power on the backs of the weak. Dangerous to anyone who thinks they can crush the small and face no consequences. She looked back at Marcus. At the human who had changed everything by doing one small thing. They taught us something, she said quietly. They taught us that kindness is not weakness. That helping others is not foolishness. That standing up for strangers is not madness. It is the most human thing in the galaxy. And now it is ours too. The journalist nodded and made notes. The story would spread. The legend would grow. In years to come, beings across the galaxy would hear about the Dragon Mother and the human who helped her. About the movement that started with one act of kindness. About the fire that could not be put out. But for now, in this moment, Virith just watched her children playing in the hall. They were laughing. They were safe. They were fed. And somewhere in the crowd, Marcus Cole was shaking hands with the beings who had once been desperate and alone. Small things. Simple things. The things that mattered most at the end.